You are looking at folks commemorating the destruction, really, of Flight United 93 in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. A bell tolled 40 times, one for each of the heroes, once for each hero on United Flight 93. The roar of 5 fighter jets over the Pentagon punctuated the ceremony for 184 heroes killed in the attack on our National Defense Hub in Virginia. The moment of the first attack was commemorated around the globe, starting in New Zealand at 8:46 a.m. local time, with the first line of the Requiem that Mozart wrote in his dying days. That Requiem was sung by choirs at 8:46 a.m. in 20 different time zones. In Australia, 3,000 people in red, white, and blue clothes assembled on a beach to make a human flag. In Paris, 2 powerful beams of light were projected into the sky as a shimmering reminder of the Twin Towers. We are forever changed as the New York skyline. It seems both trite and insufficient to say that, but it's true. My 9-year-old son was crying as he went to sleep last night. He feared another attack today. But we endure, and we celebrate the memory of those lost and the lives we continue to lead in this great democracy and rich melting pot. On this edition of Real Life, we want to talk and to cry and to remember. How are you feeling and coping a year later? How has your life changed? How has September 11th put your values into perspective? Our guests today are Walter Graham, CEO of the Red Cross of Metropolitan New Jersey, and Dr. Craig Knapp, a licensed psychologist and Red Cross volunteer. Both men spent time helping and counseling folks in New Jersey who were affected by 9/11 over the course of the past year. Gentlemen, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for inviting us.
How have people grieved over this period of time, both those who were intimately affected and all of the rest of us who knew a friend of a friend of a friend or who just watched events on television?
Well, I'd say it's been a very long year. In one respect, it's gone by very quickly. In another respect, all of us are still coping with it. At the Red Cross, you know, we do have people that are still affected by it, that are still trying to deal with it. At the time it was occurring, we were busy. The adrenaline was flowing very quickly. And so we didn't get a chance, as many of the rescue workers, to process it as the rest of the population was. So a lot of it still lingers right now. Mm-hmm.
Craig, has this been a different kind of grieving process because it was so epic and so horrific? A murder, really.
A murder, truly. It's certainly different in the proportion, you know, the size of the event and the events that have occurred since September 11th of last year. I mean, the grieving process is really a unique process. People have their own ways of coping with stress and with loss. And so if you were to ask that question of 100 different people, I suspect you'd get 100 different answers. But it certainly has affected all of America and the world in a way that probably no other event has.
My producer called me today and she said, I was crying all morning, and I said, so was I. That's not an abnormal reaction, right?
Oh, absolutely not.
So how do you get yourself through this day? We had First Lady Laura Bush saying, turn off the televisions, don't let the children see it. But it's so hard to escape it. And in a way, we in the media also want to do our part to honor all of our fallen heroes. I mean, what should people be doing today?
Well, we spent the day helping because there certainly were a number of events related to the commemorative activities over at in Manhattan. For example, all the families gathered, or a lot of the families gathered in Liberty State Park this morning again, and we were able to help them with transportation across the river to the actual ceremonies and then greet them when they came back. So we spent a lot of our time actually helping people. We spent a lot of time reflecting. We had some services gathering at the chapter this morning. We invited back all the people who had helped us on 9/11 and the weeks following in 9/11, including Craig, who came down from Vermont to be with us again. And there's a process, I think, that all of us go through, and that was evident to me this morning. There was There was a time for watching the TV and watching the ceremonies as they occurred. And then we spent quite a bit of time just reflecting back on where we each were when the event occurred, because it's kind of a marker in everybody's life. And more than that, what we were feeling and how we felt about being able to help people. And then what has gone on with us since then, how we continue to be involved with people, and actually where we need to go from here, because this is an event unlike Hurricane Floyd, where you could kind of see it coming and it hit us and then left and we cleaned up. This was an event that fundamentally,
this wasn't nature.
Right, and it changed our culture. It changed us, and we're all of us are still dealing with that reality.
Okay, I want to go to the phones. We have Maureen on the line. Hi, Maureen.
Hi.
What have you been doing today?
Crying a lot, and I just can't seem to deal with this whole situation. I worked in the Trade Center for many years. 93, I wasn't there when the car bombing, and I don't know whether to go down to the site to put an end to this. I can't. I've tried reading books. I can't get through books. It's horrible. And I just don't know what to do. I don't know whether to see somebody or there's so many memories down there.
Okay, this distractibility is a keynote of a person in long-term grieving.
Very common.
Yeah.
And do you have a support network? Do you have people that you can go there with?
Yes, I have my husband and my sister, my brother. But it's just, I don't know how I'm going to react when I see it. I know I'm very, very afraid of, I don't know what's going to happen when I go down there and see that. I worked there for so many years, and my father worked there also, and he's no longer with it, and I think of my father. I had so many memories. It's just awful.
I think that there is a time that it would probably be a good thing for you to be able to do that. Whether or not that's today or tomorrow, I'm not sure. But one thing that we need to be able to do is to bring meaning to the things that happen to us in our life. And if you have people that you can be close with and that can be close with you, you'll probably know when it's time. If you have someone to talk with, that's going to be very important. But there's no magic formula that says that it has to happen today or tomorrow.
Have you gentlemen seen in the course of your work over the past year what some surveys are showing, which is that indeed 9/11 has affected our values, made us more cognizant and appreciative of our families, our friends, our loved ones. We're closer to home, more concerned about security?
I think, if I recall, I think Mayor Giuliani said it this morning, that, you know, the intent of the terrorists was to change America forever, and they succeeded by bringing us closer. So I think there has been a resurgence in terms of values. I truly believe that. There's a spirit of giving, and I mean the outpouring, just in terms of the number of people that have been participating in some way, in any way, to try to give and help, has been incredible.
Yeah, it was amazing, the outpouring of support that organizations like the Red Cross got, starting right on that morning on 9/11, and it has been a return to values that perhaps we've lost over the last 20 years or so. I know I was working with some people who grew up in the 60s and 70s and who are just so energized again about helping people and making a difference. And it was kind of touching base again with something that they felt very passionately about as they were younger and had kind of lost and now are re-engaged with. And it's amazing to see.
Well, that's a good thing. So
Yes.
they've sort of re-triggered their own sense of civic participation.
Right.
Okay, we want to go to the phones. We have Tracy on the line now. Tracy.
Hi.
A year ago, you were giving birth.
Yes, I was. Yes.
So your son's birthday is forever intertwined with this very sad anniversary for our country.
Absolutely, yes. And My question, or what I'm actually trying to figure out, is it's a happy time for us because we brought such a beautiful person into this world.
Absolutely.
And it makes me sad to think of all those mothers that were pregnant and lost their husbands. And my husband is actually a police officer too, so I really feel for the families. But I just hope each year it just gets a little easier, because all you see on TV is all everybody mourning, and it just brings back so many hard memories, and you want to go on, and sometimes it's like it might just be a little bit easier if we can remember them, but not have it all day long where that's all you see is tragedy, and try to bring some type of happiness or learn from the experience and realize that life does go on.
Okay. Now, you raise a very interesting question, though, Tracy, because there are a lot of people with birthdays on the state.
Sure.
And Tracy,
There are people with wedding anniversaries on the state. What are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do this year, or any, you know, future year?
Yeah, Tracy, I relate very well to your predicament there, because my grandson was 5 years old today, and Craig and I were talking on the way to the studio here. How do you cope with that as you go forward? What kind of effect will it have on him? So I can relate to what you're saying.
So what are you doing for your grandson today?
Well, we made it a special day for him.
Yeah.
And tried to keep him away from those images of planes crashing into towers and commemorative events. So
I think as children grow older, certainly their ability to understand what's been happening will increase, and there's a danger, I think, that we can share too much with particularly young children. They have questions, and in our desire to be honest and to answer them, we sometimes give them more information than they need. But
well, let's talk about that, though. I mean, as I mentioned, my son was crying his eyes out last night, and in a way, there's no way to keep him away from those images you see on the television, because he walks in, if we're watching a PBS special, something wholesome, but with those images. How do parents deal with children on this day and around news events this traumatic?
I think you have to acknowledge that it's happened. You can't, I don't believe that it's healthy. I know that it's not healthy to try to hide the fact that something like this has happened. It has to be acknowledged. People have to, children are incredibly perceptive, and we can tell them whatever we want, but they read it in our faces.
They
pick up the vibes very well in what we say, and in also what we don't say. And so I think, you know, if you think about it, almost any day that we're alive, some things happen that may not be very happy, and other things happen that are more happy, and certainly, again, not of this magnitude. But to acknowledge that, you know, it's a sad day, to ask them if they have any particular questions that that you can try to provide some information to at a level that they can understand, and then to also bring meaning to the day through, if it is a birthday, that's a celebration.
Right.
And in a sense,
it's still your birthday.
It's your birthday.
Okay.
And it needs to be celebrated.
We are going to go to a quick break. As we do, we want to ask you how you're coping and how you're remembering our lost Americans on the anniversary of the attacks on America. Give us a call. We'll be right back. You are looking at folks commemorating the destruction, really, of Flight United 93 in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. A bell tolled 40 times, one for each of the heroes on that flight, and President Bush was supposed to be there at Flight 93 was supposed to be there at some point to place a wreath in memory of the folks who lost their lives there in a field in rural Pennsylvania. Welcome back to Real Life. It is the anniversary of the day that forever changed us, 9/11. We are talking about how we are all doing personally, as a community, as a nation. We'd like to know how you spent the day, how you commemorated this somber anniversary. With me in the studio are Walter Graham, CEO of the Red Cross of Metropolitan New Jersey, and Dr. Craig Knapp, a licensed psychologist and Red Cross volunteer. Both men spent time helping and counseling folks in New Jersey who were affected by 9/11 over the course of the past year. Gentlemen, I think it was very interesting. Of the many folks who lost people in the towers, at the Pentagon, on those 4 doomed flights. Many people were going to the ceremonies, and you saw that really wonderful reading of all the names of all the people lost in and around the Twin Towers. Some people weren't going anywhere. Some people wanted to sort of hunker down. Both, I presume, perfectly reasonable.
Yeah, we did, as we started to approach in the Red Cross the anniversary of 9/11, we were wondering what to do. And we said, well, let's go out and ask our staff and our volunteers what they think would be appropriate. And that's the variety and the diversity of the answers to that question showed us that everybody needed to process it in a way that was appropriate for them. Some said, gee, I'd like to have the day off, and we granted that. Some said, I'd like to come in and work in my office and do my regular job, and that was fine. Others wanted some kind of a commemorative gathering, and we had that, and it was voluntary. Right. So everybody had a different way that they needed to approach it, and I know we talked about.
I want to take a caller at this point. We've got Pamela on the line. Hi, Pamela.
Hello, how you doing?
Okay, what's up with you this day?
Well, I just wanted to call in to pay my respects to the family and friends who have lost who have lost someone on this tragic day.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah. The reaching out is often a very important thing. I mean, what did you think, Craig, of particularly the New York ceremony? It took 2 hours,
yes,
right? To read 2,801 names. Some of the folks who were there were people who had lost family members. Reading those names.
Right. And for, I think, so many people, that was one way, again, to remember, to bring not closure, but to bring a sense of peace, perhaps. I'm sure everybody had, their own reactions. I spoke with one person today who was talking about the fact that last year they were so busy. We all remember what we were doing on that day. What we don't necessarily know is what were other people doing, what was really going on, And I think for many people, we were talking about the media earlier, and is it a good idea to watch television or not? And a lot of it has to do with how it's presented and whether or not, as I was saying earlier, there are other people around who can provide support. One of the people that I spoke with today was talking about the fact that she was so busy last year that she really didn't know what had happened, and so watching the events this morning and some of the media that's been playing over the last few days helped her to put things into perspective and helped her to see how what she was doing related to other events that were going on. Very powerful this morning, the reading of the, Governor Pataki's reading of the Gettysburg Address.
Right.
1864, I believe, 140 some odd years later, 140 years later, 38 years.
Touching. So
very touching.
Because Ground Zero is, in fact, sacred ground. We're going to go to Tamara. Hi, Tamara.
Hi.
What did you do today?
Well, I just basically spent the day reminding myself that this is something we definitely can't forget. I'm a working single mother, but I didn't go to work today, and I also kept my 2-year-old son out of daycare because I felt as though, we were on the heightened alert, and also I felt as though he needed to be here with me. Although he doesn't know what went on, he will in a few years. I will have to explain to him what happened, so that's how I spent my day.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. And in fact, many people decided to make this a holy day, a day apart from work. What do you gentlemen think about this notion of making September 11th a national holiday? Walter?
Well, we actually discussed that this morning, and the kind of the consensus that we came to in our group was that it should not be made a national holiday.
Because?
Because eventually somebody made a statement that, 10 years from now somebody will decide that they're going to have a September the 11th sale on refrigerators and will dishonor the sacredness. I think that's an appropriate word. I know I spent some time over at the disaster site on that Thursday following the disaster, and it was an amazing contrast between just the buzz of activity and yet the hushed tones and the way people spoke quietly in the midst of all that chaos. And it was a sacred place, and I think it is a sacred time in the life of our nation, and one that I certainly would not want to see dishonored and commercialized. And so let's let people address it in their own way.
Nancy, how are you?
Okay, how are you this evening?
Okay, what did you do today?
I spent it with a close friend watching the reading of the names and just feeling very deeply about what happened and the families. So going through the pain. And I had written a poem a year ago, and my friend helped me with a background, and I called the mayor of Middletown, which we lost the second or third largest number of folks in the tragedy, and called the mayor's office to see when I could give it to him.
Well, that's lovely. How has your life changed?
A little bit more cautious, a little bit more loving to my family and my children, my friends, taking a little bit more time in life. If the housework gets done, it gets done. It'll be there tomorrow, hopefully.
Yeah.
And just being a little bit more grateful for what I have instead of worrying about what I don't have.
Okay, Nancy, thank you so much for sharing that with us. It seems like a great sort of pouring forth of creativity in terms of memorializing. A lot of, Nancy was talking about her own effort poem that she wants to send to her mayor in Middletown. But, you saw people leaving everything in that circle of honor today in New York City.
Mary, crisis is truly a time of danger, but it's also a time of opportunity. Our daily routines are thrown into total disarray, and whatever it was that we had planned just doesn't matter anymore. And so it can be a time of great confusion, and as we talked about distractibility, there can be many different problems that may arise. But it's also a time when, in fact, we do reflect and we look to ourselves, we look at our connections in life, and it is a time of birth and rebirth and wonderful opportunity. And the previous caller was just talking about that.
Right. Okay. We're going to go next to Joe. Hi, Joe. How are you?
Hi, how you doing?
Now, you were there.
Yes, I was.
On 9/11.
Yes, I was.
You're a federal police officer.
Yes, I am.
So you saw up close and personal those sights that you will never forget.
Yes, I saw everything. And a week afterwards, I found that I lost my best friend from high school.
Oh, sorry. How have you been coping? And what did you do today? First off, I'll ask you.
I went to church this morning. I'm not a church goer, but I went today, and I just basically spent the day by myself, listening to the names and watching newscasts and contacting our old friends.
Did it help to watch?
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
It did. It's good to see the American people supporting us.
And how have you coped in this past year? I mean, my producer was telling us that a lot of the folks who've been involved in these heroic and difficult rescue efforts suffer mental health effects for long periods of time after. How have you been doing, Joe?
I think I've been doing fine. It's tough because I work in the city and I'm there every day.
Yeah.
I'm reminded of it every day, and I just try to get by for the people that lost loved ones and survivors. And just trying to deal with that.
Well, Joe, we salute you and we thank you for giving us a call. Have a good day. Talk to me about that specific crew of people, the rescuers, the firemen, all the folks who worked on Ground Zero day in, day out for months, and who were intimately connected to this rubble, seeing the after effects of terrorism, discovering bodies.
There's no way to easily describe the impact that that may have on a person. Those are life-altering and lifelong experiences, and they're not going to be forgotten. What we can hope for is that, again, as people continue on with their lives, that they find some meaning in what they've been doing. Again, as we talked this morning in a group, people were sometimes talking about, gee, feeling frustrated that I couldn't do enough, or I wasn't.
But you at least did something. You were there.
Right.
You were working. I want to take one last call. We've got Debbie. Hi. Debbie?
Hi.
Yes, talk to me.
Hi. My husband and I went to church today, and we just spent it quietly listening to
turn down your television. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
We spent it quietly, listening to them say the names, and we just appreciate what we have, and again, not what we don't have.
Okay. There was a lot of opportunity for reflection today, even through television. As people go to bed tonight, what thoughts should they take with them? Walter?
Well, I'll just echo what the caller just talked about, what some other callers talked about. I think what I reflect on and what I will reflect on tonight is the things that I have, the things that are important to me, some of the good that has come from out of this tragedy, the fact that we're better connected with one another, we bonded closer.
We love our blessings in this country and our blessings of each other. See you all.